if two people are in trouble, you stand back and say, oh, Jesus, that's great. Maybe they'll break up and be miserable. Shocking, absolutely shocking. But I put on the record in that I'd known 8 people who were murdered. Now, I come from a fairly good social and academic background, highly unusual for a person of my background, or any person, to know 8 people personally who were murdered, and a lot who were beaten up. But I think that is not as bad as it was. I hope it's not. And I think one of the things is, and it's a function of how far we moved, there's a wonderful, wonderful group called Belong To, run by a fellow from down this part of the wood, actually. It's Graigna Manor, well, Inishtig, or some of these places he comes from, Michael Barron. Fantastic fellow. And all the others, it's now a big movement. They have an office in Cable Street, it was opened by the minister, and they've had a campaign against homophobic bullying in schools. And desperately important, because 80% of the bullying incidents carry some homophobic element, and 80% of them are never dealt with, because the church has got an exemption from the operation of the equality legislation to enable them to fire people for their lifestyle. And the teachers are afraid in many cases. But I do think things have changed a great deal, and I think that's good. And can I tell you, you were talking to a fellow about this. When I was on Marion Finucane, and she raised this business of the presidency, and a lot of people rang in. Most of them were very positive. But one fellow rang in and said, don't get me wrong, I think David Norris is a great lad. I like him. And I'd love to see a gay president, because I'm gay myself, but I couldn't vote for him. And she said, why not? And he said, oh, he's far too left-wing. And she said, what do you think of that? I said, I think that's bloody marvellous. It's fantastic, because here's somebody who's parked this irrelevant detail. And after all, I'm 66 now, so don't expect too much fireworks out of me. And he's decided on political issues. I said, I wish he'd come to a different view, and I hope that a lot of other voters will come to a different view. But he's right. I think this is remarkable. And I said, then she got on to talking about the gay issue of the presidency. And I said, well, put it this way. I was the first person in the world elected to a national parliament, having always campaigned as being gay. But I didn't make a meal out of it, because I knew that would turn me into a freak, and it would be a distraction. And the 90% of people who weren't gay in my constituency would feel they were being shortchanged, so it would be wrong. But I made it clear that I was prepared to work in the area of the economy, transport, culture, human rights, all this kind of stuff as well. So when I spoke on gay rights, it was listened to, because I wasn't on about it all the time. And then recently, after the last election, there is a super hunk in the Senate. Now, you might not believe that from Oireachtas report, but believe me, there is a super hunk, and he sits in front of me.
I hope you don't get too distracted.
Oh, no, I'll tell you what, it's a little bit of decoration. It's what they call eye candy. If you get bored looking at the ceiling, you can look at Dominic Hannigan. And I saw him in the restaurant last year with this very attractive young woman and 2 lovely kids. And I said to him afterwards, was that your family, Dominic? He said, what do you mean? I said, wife and kids. He said, what? I said, was that your wife and children that you were with? He said, you mean you don't know? I said, don't know what? He said, you're not the only gay in the village. And I think it's wonderful that this is the man that the female reporters, Miriam Lord and all the rest of them, they're absolutely drooling after him. And he's gay. And he doesn't have to make a meal out of it. He's been elected. He's a very good representative.
Okay.
And that's great. And the other thing I'd say about the presidency is this. If I was elected, anybody else elected, it's a non-story, basically, around Europe. It is, honestly, because it's a kind of run-of-the-mill traditional politics. If I was elected, it would be a global story. It really would. The first gay head of state in the world. Ireland confirms the Robinson effect. Yes, we welcome the fact that we are a diverse and open society. And imagine if I went to New York or Washington, every news channel, including the lousy murder-controlled Fox News and all this, they'd all be hungry to get at me. But I'm a cute old whore, I can tell you that. And I'm well able to take that issue and park it and get out and sell Ireland. And this is a country that can be sold, because there's a hell of a lot happening in it, but we're not selling it
Okay.
Can I tell you my Joe the Plumber story?
Oh, very quickly then,
Very
David.
quickly, because you know McCain had his Joe the Plumber story, where he met Joe the Plumber, and Joe, oh, balls, I think he made it up. But mine was a Jill the Plumber story. After my day's work in Leinster House, about 4 or 5 months ago, I flew down to Cork, picked up, taken out to Clonakilty. I'd spoken at an AFRI meeting, and the young women in transition year had decided they wanted me as their speaker at their graduation, where it was for the transition year. And I won't go into old because he's looking at me. But I'll give you one, and this was electrifying. In Clonakilty, as in many places, could very well happen here too, because of the rich nutrient coming off the farmland, there's a sudden bloom of sea lettuce, which is a kind of seaweed. It looks quite nice in the water, but then it all kind of wodges up and gets stuck on the shore. The sun strikes it and it stinks, and it puts off the tourists. So this group of about 5 or 6 young women isolated that problem. They went out physically and they collected samples, they analysed it chemically, and they compressed it, and they discovered that you could turn it into briquettes that had the same heat equivalent as peat, as turf, and had twice the burning time. Now, that is fantastic. You know, 15, 16-year-old girls take a problem, identify, and turn it into something positive. And last Friday, I launched a thing called Read Assist for this woman, Sheila Byrne. Her daughter has dyslexia. And she got fed up with this business of trying to get her to read. And she noticed there was something about her eyes. She took a Kellogg's cornflake packet in the kitchen. She took a scissors. She cut out a strip so that the girl's attention and her eyes were focused on the sentence and just the next sentence. And it worked. And she's now refined it. She's made it in plexiglass or plastic or some bloody thing. And she has different coloured lenses because different kinds of dyslexia respond to different coloured lenses. And it's being marketed now in Ireland. The schools are queuing up to get it. It's going into the UK market. It's going to go worldwide. So she's taken a problem in her own life. She's sorted it out. And now she's marketing it. And she's looking forward to the days when she'll be starting to employ people in her own factory. Isn't that fantastic? And look at that one from Ballyfermo, again, that was on the television last night. Mary Byrne, isn't that it?
Oh, and the
Wonderful, 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 because we have so much imagination and talent that we can break the stereotype, you know, and display the talent. So I can tell you, there's an awful lot that can be done to sell this country, because there is so much to be sold, but it's not being sold in the right way, and we're allowing all this dreary stuff about the economy to blot out everything else, and we're not addressing the economy properly, and we're not taking on the international agencies, which we should. Because the fear that I have is that you, the talented young people of this country, are going to lose patience, and you're not going to hang around. So you won't be here when the bounce comes. And the bounce will come. And I hope that there's a good plenty of you left behind, and not in Australia, New Zealand, America, Canada, wherever. Wonderful places. And go and get the experience, but come back, because your country needs you.
Okay, I want to get one question from the student group before we finish up, because I know... okay, go for it.